Good morning and welcome to continuing coverage of Davos Worldwide's Davos 2026. This is the Founders and Leaders Forum. We are on day three. We've had two incredible days of some of the most prolific speakers, spanning from family offices to fund managers to investment banks, to some activists to bringing a very myriad amount of expertise and experience into the program. We are looking forward to today's programming. The next panel is going to be something of a departure from what we've been doing, and this is going to be a little bit more about personal development. So, with that, I'm going to briefly introduce the panelists. They will be doing an amazing panel. So it is my pleasure to introduce Nicolas and Shani. And Shani, we welcome you to the program. We are grateful for your contribution, and we think everybody that's watching and everybody that will continue to watch this will learn a lot. So with that, please take the panel forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And what a pleasure and an honor to be here with you all. Shani Lehrer, I'm sure we will have a half an hour now of some deep dive into exploring together with Nicolas, my dear colleague, friend. I'm sorry, yes, okay, great. My dear colleague and friend here with us. So we are here to talk a little bit about both the work, we both do the work with leaders and with senior leaders around the world. And as Anand said, we are sometimes departing a little bit from the I would say, very rigid, structured way of leadership work into one that we'd love to introduce a little bit for you here today together. And this is about something that we've both seen, which is the necessary revisioning of leadership and how to remember forgotten or take on new skills and remember, I would say, forgotten skills that are needed to steer us forward through these times, which is something we've both been meeting a lot in our practices and work. And Nicolas has been guiding transformational development with Fortune 500 leaders, CEOs worldwide for, I believe, over 20 years now, Nicolas, 30 years?
Yes.
And I'd love to hear your thoughts, Nicolas, on what are you meeting with the leaders you work, and so we can share a little bit and see where that takes us.
Well, thank you, Shani, and it's a great pleasure to be here. And hello to everyone watching. So, what I'm meeting is really a more acute version of what I've been meeting for some years now. And the reason it's more acute is that almost all the senior leaders I'm working with are saying something very similar, which is that the ways we have been used to working are not really working anymore. It's like the playbooks we know are not functioning as they used to. So I've seen this coming. So I have to say, in a way, I'm pleased because I think it's pointing the way more clearly to the kind of development that has always been needed and now is more obviously needed than ever. And the reason I say that is what I see that we have normalized. And what we have normalized is a whole way of functioning that is extremely dominated by linear thinking, disconnected from the intelligence of the body, the wisdom of the heart, the extraordinary capacity of our intuition, and not residing in any kind of what we might call transcendent stillness. So that's why I say we are operating in a very narrow bandwidth. And, I work with, as you said, leaders for many years now. And that's always been clear during my work with them. And it's becoming much more widely clear now. So my proposition, like yours, is that narrow bandwidth is completely inadequate in the face of the kind of uncertainty radical uncertainty we're meeting, which does not bend itself to linear, rational thinking alone. So I stand for the fact that thinking needs to take its place as part of a much bigger coherence within us of body, heart, mind, intuition, because then we're operating with a far bigger perceptual field. And I think that's what is urgently needed now in the kinds of extraordinary challenges we are facing. And let me ask you, because you're most trusted advisors to some of the most senior leaders in the world, an international speaker like me also. So I'd love to know what you're also meeting and if it's similar or what you would add to what I said.
First of all, I would say it's similar. I feel like more and more people that I find myself sitting with in the office or in the boardroom are asking for new and deeper ways to look at the same problems that they have been looking, because obviously something is not working. And I feel very fortunate to be able to work with extraordinary minds. And I feel there's a new level of humility, which I have too, in a way, that is saying, okay, we've done something for a long time and it's yielding results. So it's not to say, I mean, businesses have grown, the economy
Yeah.
has grown, things are
Cool.
growing. And yet, at what price, and at what price, I will say personally, but also at what price to the people who work for me, or at the price of the humans in my country, of those that I don't necessarily see, or those who I don't necessarily see the direct effect of in my close inner circle, or what happens with my products or services. So products, what are these products actually doing in the whole of the ecosystem, from mine to market, if you will, or from the factory to reaching the final client? And where in that system is there a lack of coherence, I would say, that's really truly aligned with a lot of the missions that are spoken. So we have the mission of a company, the mission of a country leader. And then there's, wait, but is there a coherent line that runs through, or a red thread that connects all things between all of the various levels of that organization or infrastructure being implemented into the final person it touches? And so
Yes.
a lot of the work that I'm finding myself doing is, because how can we fix it all when you have, a few 100,000 people who work for you and you're serving millions and millions of people? How do you really implement such a statement that says, I want to be more aligned, which is a
Yes.
lot of what's coming to me. And I know we've had a few conversations about this. And so the ways in which I've been experimenting, I would say, and finding a lot of change happening was actually when these same people look at their insides.
Yes.
So finding the lack of coherence in the closest is much easier than finding it in a million different processes and systems and structures and policies.
You're right.
So when that one leader starts seeing themselves differently, what happens is everything changes. Now,
Exactly.
of course, that's very scary because people don't want to look at themselves necessarily, but we're lucky, you and I, aren't we? We get to meet those ones.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And I feel
Yeah.
there's more and more of a courageous flow, and I'd like to hear your thought on that. More of a courageous group of humans who are in very senior positions in the world, saying,
Yes.
there's a reckoning here.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. And please, I want to hear more about,
Yes.
you have any concrete examples of
I
people
do.
who are doing?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And actually, I would add something to what you said, which is that I think we have to really take on board that the whole way we perceive and experience the world is entirely subjective, meaning it's entirely based on what's happening in here.
Exactly.
Entirely.
Yeah.
So we talk
Exactly.
about changing this and that and that. Okay, but actually, once we really work in here and bring everything into more coherence, the whole way of navigating and thinking about out there changes.
Right.
This is like beginning, essential foundation. So, like you say, I work with leaders who are ready to look inside.
Mm.
And in fact, to give you a concrete example, just before Christmas, I flew to America to spend 2 days with a chief executive in charge of 160,000 people. A remarkable man, already very developed, but like any person committed to their development, always wants to go to the next level. Hence me coming.
What a key, of course.
Hence
Yes.
me coming. So we explored many topics. Now, I believe we have to do what I call awakening and healing.
Mm.
The healing part, which has come on board a lot more in the last year, it's a whole field. It's sometimes called trauma-informed leadership. We have to look towards all the parts of us that we naturally had to suppress growing up. We had to, but they haven't gone away. They sit inside as contractions within us. They affect our whole life flow. They affect our thinking, and they create maps of the world that are very unconscious, and they're buried in the body. And we have to make it safe enough to touch and feel those. At the same time, we need to work with the awakening of our consciousness, where we begin to experience a much bigger field, even as the traditions would call it, a unified field. And at one point with him, we were looking, it sounds very simple, but I think most leaders will understand this. I said to him, when you go meeting with your COO or your CFO, how much are you feeling them?
Yes.
How much are you actually relating to them versus being in your thinking process, what you want to know, what you said you want to get out of the meeting? Let's not push that away. But how about deepening how you actually are in the meeting so that relationship happens? Because we know, you and I've seen it hundreds of times, that when a team sit together in what we might call a connected way, which is also our deep humanity, that's when huge insights start happening. So the very thing we prize, which is our critical thinking, most of the way we operate is actually set up to diminish that. It's so interesting. That's why this inner work, this inner practice has to become first priority. And I know you have this extraordinary body of work called inner geopolitics. And I'm pretty sure this is the territory you're speaking about. So I'd love to hear more from you about that.
Thank you, Nicolas. And what a perfect moment. I hear President Trump just finished speaking at Davos, so talking of
Mm.
politics and inner geopolitics.
Yes.
And one of the, and again, I have to say this and stress this, and I know that we both have this experience, which is, you know, rare are the people or the humans who are willing to look inside, and like
Mm.
Jung said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside
Yes.
awakes, because
Right.
otherwise, as you say, we're living in these constructs, and we're actually still fighting to prove to daddy that I am the best, because when I was a child, he told me that I am not. Or still trying
Exactly.
to prove to mommy that I can be loved, so I overgive to everyone, and I constantly, transgress my boundaries or other people's boundaries in order to reach out for love in inappropriate ways, etc., etc. And there's so many
Right.
ways in which this plays out, and it's incredible to see and this is where inner geopolitics was born. I was doing this deep study on the fragments, the fragmented parts of our ego. And that little boy, for example, that was ostracized by his father, who, was constantly reminded and shamed for being wrong or not being good enough, or being either becomes someone who commits suicide at some point and goes heavily into drugs, or becomes the one that will kill anything and everyone in its way in order to be the best. So both things can happen with that same trauma. And so I was looking at the different parts of the ego, and I realized, and this has been spoken about by many who came much before both of us, Carl Jung being one of them, and the shadow aspects of our consciousness, and how they actually are fighting for a seat in the room.
Right.
They are fighting to sit in the boardroom and to be heard. And those parts, for example, the part of me that is very fiery and happy and gets excited about things, for example, that gets pushed away into a dark corner, becomes someone who will steal joy, who will go to lust, who will do things that are not, and there's so many different ways in which this comes out. So these different parts are fighting for a seat, are fighting to be seen. Now, because they've been mutually excluded, they fight for taking one another out. Rather than saying, okay, we're all going to sit together and we're all going to, okay, we all want to, defend a certain cause. Let's come together and find a way to make this happen together. We all want to be seen as lovely and loved, which is at the core what we all want. It doesn't matter who we are on the planet. And I'm sure you see this a lot.
Yes.
So, in energy, what I realized was, and I mapped out the ways in which these ego forms war on each other, wage war on each other. And then I said, wait, but I can see this in family systems too. I'm not speaking to you. This person who's this kind of energy, I don't want in my, and then take that a little bit further, and it becomes our geopolitical system. Through, of course, communities and countries.
Yes.
Now, we know this in our physical system. If a heart knows, if the cells of the heart know to do what they are here to do, and the cells of the liver know to do what they are here to do, and they don't have to fight, they just have to each shine their light and collaborate in this extraordinary creation of our body, then the ease cannot happen. This ease happens when some cells decide to take over, or some cells decide to take out others because they don't, and that's where disease happens. And the micro and the macro of this is what my book is about. It's coming out soon, but it's also a lot of, there's a lot of inner work to be done with that, and it's become a framework really, and which is being embraced, and I'm seeing it truly get transformation, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it anymore. And then, the patterns in how the business is run become, oh my goodness, this is, I know this from the crib.
Yes.
And sometimes we could argue even before, right, Nicolas?
Absolutely. Yes. Beautiful to hear.
Should we talk, Nicolas, should we talk a bit about, because we created this program, from radical uncertainty to radical creativity, and I feel this is maybe a good time to share a little bit about that. And first of all, and how I enjoy working with you, of course. And it's been a treat. It's been such a treat. But maybe a bit on, what we created, because it is going to more than our one-on-one work. I'd love to invite you to share.
Great. Let me just say before that, I put a post on LinkedIn yesterday about how boardrooms are full of 5-year-olds. And I say it sometimes, and people initially laugh, and then they say, yeah. So we take that seriously, because decisions are being taken by 5-year-olds. And Jung said something very simple. He said, whatever is unconscious is driving your life. Exactly. And it's a sobering message, because, Yeah, it's not easy, but that's why, the many of us who are holding space for senior leaders to make the courageous step of looking inside. I think that's why our work is more needed than ever. So,
Often I tell them I should be paying them and not the opposite because
yes,
we learned. I
so
learned
much.
so
So,
much. Uh,
exactly.
and you know, when someone comes from a lot of problems in their
Mm.
life, it's easier to be jolted into awakening.
Yeah,
When
true.
someone on a perceived level already has the power, has the money,
Success.
has
Yes.
the success,
Yes. True.
it's much more difficult to say, okay, I'm going to
I
take
know.
myself into
I know.
discomfort. And so I feel we're both very lucky
Yeah.
on respect.
Well, in that, that fills out a bit more what might have sounded strange when I said I'm glad for what's happening, because I think there are more and more people who can no longer rest comfortably in what seems like success. Even I have to say, I'm hearing more and more senior leaders quietly saying, I'm so lonely.
Yeah.
I feel so isolated, which I don't believe many of them would have said even a year ago. Radical uncertainty. Yes. So, my background was in the arts. I spent 20 years teaching actors how to live into the deepest zone, what in sports is called the zone, or the deepest flow. Everyone in the arts knows that the most fertile space to be in is complete unknowing. But not empty, but with a capital E, not depressed empty, like empty, wow, I'm here. I feel very alive and I'm ready. Every artist knows that. From Beethoven, who said he used to walk in the woods and hear music, to Keith Jarrett, the legendary pianist, who said, I have to find a way for my hands to start the concert without me. Amazing. So, why am I saying that? Because radical uncertainty, which we are in, because so many local and global systems are feeling more and more fragile, is very problematic for the linear mindset that is based upon being in control.
Yes.
And the illusion, you see, and as you said, it was working for a while. So the illusion could kind of be maintained. Yeah, we can control and predict. But as things are more and more uncertain, the limitations of that are more and more obvious and painful. So there's a huge letting go needed. And above all, a letting go of the need to be in control and a resting in a much deeper inner base, I would say, that says, no, I don't need to be in control. I need to listen. And I need to come and root myself in a place of inner being, let's say, and coherence, where radical creativity is the natural flow of life. It's the natural flow. So I think, the title of our program, I think, is very, very appropriate for the time because it's not just a letting go of control, it's a seeing through all the programs that we absorbed inevitably, all the programs we absorbed about life, all the identity that we came to form, much of which, as I've come to see, sits on real fear. And
Yes.
it's a fear that is deep in the veins almost. And then we realize that a lot of the activity we do is partly purpose to not feel that fear,
Yeah. To keep
which is
moving.
why there has to be a stopping. We have
Yeah.
to stop long enough.
Yeah.
And then those programs can melt much faster than we think in the right conditions. Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. And which brings me to, you know, healer, leader as healer. You wrote a
Mm.
best-selling business book of the year in 2023, I believe it was.
It
And
won Business Book of the
I
Year.
I mean, it is an extraordinary book. It's one of the gifts I give to people when I want to introduce to them, what new leadership or ancient leadership that was
Yes.
less
Yes.
run by a culture of me over you, but rather
Exactly.
holds an
Yes.
us as a if I grow, you we grow to because naturally that is the creative,
Mm.
the radical creativity part. And maybe you could share for the listeners a few words on your book, about your book,
Mm.
and about Leader is Healer, and
Right.
maybe a few key messages that you can share that would be helpful to
Right.
people who are listening.
Well, at the time it sounded like a radical title. It's not leader and healer are not words we would think of in the same sentence. But, the fact that it won the award, I think already showed the recognition. And it's not a healing on the physical level. It's not a healing out there. It's a healing of our inner fragmentation. Like you said, all of these different parts that are in the shadows warring with each other often. So the whole book is about coming home to our body. Most people live very disconnected from their body. Even if they go to the gym, they do things to their body. It's not the same as coming home to their body. We all got very hurt in our life. Everyone did. And our heart built walls. We all got estranged from our intuition. How many of us were taught at school that your body has an extraordinary capacity to feel the world? Did you know that in your heart you can feel people? I mean, this was not in our curriculum.
Yeah.
So, and what does it mean to live with real purpose? Because I do believe, and I'm like you, I think, that in our core, we have an innate wish to give. That's who we most deeply are. And it's not an effort. And actually, one of the deepest components of this smaller identity is not only loneliness, it's often a feeling of lack and scarcity, if we really look. So I'm constantly looking to the outside to either affirm my identity or to give me enough things that I won't have to feel that lack. And in the kind of reprogramming we are talking about, where we come back to a much deeper essence of who we are, it's a place of abundance and natural purpose. Natural purpose.
Yes, and it's a place where, echoing that, where we receive an abundance, where we
Yeah.
are able to create and generate abundance in order to share. We receive in order to give. We receive and give. It's kind of a flow of,
Mm.
receive the blessing of. A great teacher once said to me, he said, "Give what you want to receive."
Mm. Mm.
He said, "Whatever you want, give more of." You want
Wonderful.
more money? Give more money. In the beginning,
Yeah.
what do you mean? And he was right. He was
Yes.
right. You
Yes.
want more. You want more creativity. Share more creativity. You want more love. Give more love. You want to be seen, and it doesn't mean give in the same place. By the way, it's not quid
Right.
pro
Right.
pro quo. It's it, if I'm feeling like I am not fill in the blank in my business,
Mm.
go and give that somewhere. And that will generate, how
Yes.
interestingly, the
Yes.
the energy of that. Now, these are principles that, one could call spiritual, one could call energetic, one could call frequency, vibration. We could go into many places that are, um, in a lot of the business world, still a bit
Yeah.
woo-woo. But I
But it's
am very
changing. It's changing that,
It
isn't
is
it?
changing. And I was in Davos 2 years ago. I remember sitting, the CEO of Chanel was speaking, and she, an extraordinary
Mm.
lady, and she was sharing, she said, and this was a broadcast, and she said, I'm very, um, I'm feeling a bit anxious because I think it was my husband is in the room, and
Mm.
the ex-CEO is in the room, and my spiritual guide is in the room. And everybody went,
Mm.
and there was this moment. But more and more, be it the spiritual guide, the healer, the counselor, the
Yes.
advisor, the mirror into not just, oh, how wonderful you are, and I'm going to enable more of what you're doing because I like you or because I'm receiving something from you, but rather, and I feel like that's a lot of what we do, Nicholas, in a way, for each
Yeah.
other and for others, is, a very firm and loving mirroring
Mm.
of greatness and sometimes shadow that needs to come up for
Yeah,
freedom so that it does not cause more havoc and more damage, which
exactly.
a lot of the world we're looking at today is probably a result of.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
I think we're about to come to a close. Here we are. Hi, Anand.
Yeah, so thank you so much for such a wonderful panel. Really appreciate you guys coming, and it's an amazing thing to look at what the future holds. And I think that
Yes.
every little step that humanity takes on personal development, on being able to deal with what is around us, is so
Mm.
important. So once again, thank you so much, and looking forward to continued discussions and to seeing the impact that you make in the world.